Well, some persons of interest have been named in the Stephen Smith case, and it ain't Bus Bus or Paw Paw. We're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa back there. That's Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane holding the sofa down back there behind me, as you can see. There he goes. And my name's Paul. Now, as you saw, as you heard, you clicked the thumbnail, we've gathered around the old lantern. We're going to be talking about the Stephen Smith case. This is the gentleman who was found in the middle of the roadway. This has been linked into the whole Murdock case, that whole scenario. Well, there's several updates have happened, right? The case was ruled as a hit and run, but, you know, if you've watched the documentaries, if you follow the case, rumors flew that, you know, Buster Murdock had something to do with it, maybe even Paul Murdock, and numerous things, right? So the investigation has been reopened. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to specifically talk about just a couple of dynamics because, again, this story is taking so many different turns. I'm just like, where do you start? So we'll talk about a couple of the updates, and then we're going to watch a news clip with some audio stuff, clips in it that have conversations between officers who were investigating. And then we're going to read a couple of articles from Fit News, or not a couple of articles, a couple of excerpts from it that go a little bit more into detail that will better inform the audio clips or the clips from the news article that we're going to review. And so we'll go over that. And that's it. So go ahead and buckle your seatbelts up because this one is pretty big. Now let's go ahead and put up the first news clip here. You can either pause to read or just listen to me read them out loud. Some of these are going to be very short, but let's go ahead and do this one. So in here, it has been reported that the body of Stephen Smith has reportedly been exhumed. A source close to the investigation said Smith's body was exhumed on March 31st in order to conduct an independent autopsy. Now, again, if you're following this, and you probably know what this is in relation to, because it was ruled as a hit and run, and there was some strange reasonings behind that, that they did that for, and it just, the family wants to make sure and have outside people, third party, rule this over to make sure there was no foul play or that it was a homicide and whatnot, and it wasn't swept under the carpet. So a GoFundMe was set up, money was raised to be able to get the body exhumed, and they have allegedly now done that. Let's go on to the next little clip. SLED has his cell phone and they have cracked it, Bland told the Hampton County Guardian Thursday, and they have the tablet and are working on cracking it. Meanwhile, other possibly key pieces of evidence, including an R kit, remain unaccounted for. Now, one thing that came out with this is an R kit was performed on him, which does seem odd. So we'll see what that says or comes back if they can find it. I think it's also odd that it's unaccounted for. I think tons of information will be found out in the tablets that he has. Now also, and we're going to talk about this gentleman here in a little bit, a gentleman who was alleged to have been Stephen's boyfriend is saying, look, all the answers you want to know what's going on are going to be found in the tablet and the cell phone. So there's that, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Let's go ahead and start watching the news clips now and talk about those for just a moment.
As investigative reporter Max Deeknight explained, someone did report two young men that they say hit Smith with a truck, but they were never charged.
One reason I put that clip up is because when I first saw this and started reading through this, where I was like, you know, I mean, my gosh, I watched the documentaries, and I'm not trying to say, oh, the documentary said this, but, you know, listen to investigators and whatnot, and the things that we've seen come out where it's like, it seems so odd that this would be an actual hit and run, right? Because all the evidence of, you know, his shoes were loosely on him, but they were still there on his feet. You know, all this stuff that normally is present with a vehicular type accident was not present with him. So then to hear, you know, oh, well, we have these two gentlemen talking about the, you know, of accidentally hitting him with a truck. You know, I'm just like, okay, this is majorly taking a turn. Because for me, of course, when this first went down, this fit the complete MO of, oh, please, you know, the Murdocks have covered this up. I mean, look at what has been going on. And so now that it's coming out, and again, all this is alleged, just as it was alleged and all that with the rumors about Buster, you know, we need to see interviews done and whatnot. This is why this needed to be reopened and reinvestigated, is because of stuff like this, where it's like, well, wait a minute, there's all these interviews out here with some really intriguing information in them. Again, we need to see where the truth leads. If it leads to Bus, then it leads to Bus. If it leads to these two gentlemen, then it leads to these two gentlemen, right? But at the end of the day, truth needs to come to the surface for justice, whatever that means, right, for Stephen, but as well as for his loved ones and his friends and his family.
They are not members of the Murdock family. Audio clips obtained by our team reveal there's much more to this story.
I mean, amen, brother. Damn near fell off the sofa when I started reading through this, because I was just like, what? If all of this does come out, that it's like, this is what went down, what a bizarre twist in the story.
A phone call in December 2015 between now retired Corporal Michael Duncan with the South Carolina Highway Patrol and former Hampton County police officer Nick Ginn reveal a tipster made authorities aware of two potential suspects in 19-year-old Stephen Smith's death.
Okay, so I wanted to put that in to introduce the clips we're getting ready to listen to about the audio. So just know that these are the gentlemen that we're going to hear talking, and let's just listen to a few brief clips of that, and then we'll comment on it in between.
Can you tell me what was told to you? We've tried to get in touch with, but he, he's kind of avoiding the call, the contact, and all.
This is what I was told. He said, "Come over here to the house." He said he told me that was drunk and hit something. He said he went back the next day to see what it was he had hit, and he seen a lot of police out there. So he talked to one of the cops, and then he had left, and then he learned, I guess by media, that somebody had been killed in that same area.
Okay, now in a moment we're going to go over again a little bit more in depth about what allegedly took place out there with these gentlemen, person 1 and 2 that he's talking about. Number one, when he's describing that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can you imagine? You're out doing whatever he was doing at this time. You hit something not knowing what it was. And again, I'm not sure if he knew or knew. Again, this is all alleged at this point, right? But then you go the next day and there's all these police around there, and it's like, yeah, somebody was killed over here. Here's the thing. I grew up where there's lots of deer and that type of stuff, so I've hit deer, obviously on accident before, right? But I've hit deer before, and so my thought immediately went to, I mean, my gosh, you're going down these back roads where there's no lights out here. It's dark, and you hit something. I don't know. It sends shivers down my spine, but I also still have so many questions if this is what took place, but we'll get to those in a minute. Let's keep listening.
The tipster told Ginn person 1 was visibly distraught.
Was crying, telling him, and after he got finished telling the story, he walked outside his house and threw up.
Now again, if all of that is true, to me that would be a very normal reaction. That would be like a severe, like if somebody came up to me and was like, Paul, remember when we were going last night and you hit that thing and we thought it was a deer or whatever, but really it was blank, and now there's cops around there? Oh, I would have barfed all over the place, right? I mean, that seems so realistic to me.
They also say person 2, the driver of the truck, may have tried to cover up evidence.
So, supposedly he had fixed his mirror. He had patched one of the mirrors up on the truck.
So then here's my question with this. If you patch the mirror up, and I'm also sitting here going off on a little tangent over here in my mind. So say he really did this. Say this, we get hardcore evidence. This is what happened. Bust, none of them had anything to do with it, right? They could have started a campaign, whoever these dudes are, of the rumor mill, right, to get that going, because look at how easy it would be, with them. I mean, this family was already involved in so much shady stuff, right? That would not be a far cry. But then I guess I'm thinking, how did they clean the scene up? I have so many questions about that, right? Because listening to the detectives on the documentaries who were like, look, the blood wasn't normal, the tumbling wasn't normal, but then part of me is like, if he flew by and hit him with the mirror, number one, I would think it would be shattered. I think there would be some sign of said mirror on the roadway. I mean, you're trying to pick something up drunk in the morning, right? It doesn't make sense. And if we go based on that, where they're like, oh, well, he went back and learned that it was, whatever, that tells me they're trying to say that he didn't stop and check it out, because you wouldn't want to say that either, right? He's not going to sit here and say, oh, I stopped and made sure he was dead and then cleaned up the mirror. I mean, he's not going to say that, right? So I have so many questions about if this scenario really is what happened. how they pulled this off.
Both officers acknowledged this was the only concrete lead they'd come across in this investigation.
Well, I heard some rumors around town, but as far as anything that I could say that had any kind of possible validity would be this.
Right. Just the only thing you've heard prior to this is rumors.
Right.
Okay.
So here's the other part that I question. And again, I'm not trying to go down this whole, oh, it has to be the Murdocks or this, that, but we're getting ready to go look into some of the other articles here. We're going to find out that this guy lived very close to there, has other issues going on. And so part of me is like, again, how did he clean this up? How did he construct the crime scene? Or was it just everything was just perfect, right? There's still a lot of unanswered questions in that regard to this with me, but let's go look over the article and then revisit those in a minute. Okay, so first of all, it comes up and Murdock linked Patrick Wilson, Sean Connolly, eyed as persons of interest in the Stephen Smith murder, and we're going to go over the details of that now. So if you want to pause and read this on your own and not listen to me read through it, that's fine. I've just got a couple of screenshots I want to put up. These are from Fit News. I'm going to put an article down below with links to the full interrogations or interviews with these people that are mentioned in this article. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, they uploaded them to YouTube and it shocks me the little amount of views that they have, because I was like, where what? I mean, it's amazing. So what I want to do is just hit on a couple of things that are very much pertaining to just this specific thing of what possibly could have happened, but it's an entire other rabbit hole if you want to go down it. So let's continue. As previously reported by this news outlet, on December 18th, 2015, 5 months after Smith's murder, South Carolina Highway Patrol investigators received a tip from Wilson's stepfather, Darrell Williams of Varnville, South Carolina, and according to Williams, his stepson informed him that Conley, another Hampton County teenager, was driving a vehicle which struck and killed Stephen Smith. Now here's where it gets a little bit like, who told him to share this information? Randy Murdock, Alec Murdock's older brother. I just find that interesting, but we'll get more into that. According to case notes contained in the MAIT report, Williams stated that the reason he was passing this information on was because Randy Murdock told him to call. Both Wilson and Conley lived in the area near where Stephen Smith's body was found, and there is information obtained by SLED investigators which has reportedly drawn a sharper focus on them as potential suspects. Okay, we're going to move on to the second one. At the time of Wilson's confession, he was facing attempted murder charges. Those charges were later dropped by the Office of South Carolina 14th Circuit Solicitor Duffy Stone, which employed Alec Murdock as a badge-carrying assistant solicitor at the time. Stone followed Murdock's father, grandfather, and great-grandfather into office and served at the pleasure of the Murdocks, according to one Hampton historian. Meanwhile, on August 7, 2015, a month after Smith's death, Randy Murdock filed a motor vehicle accident lawsuit against Conley on behalf of his client, Christopher Still. Less than a year later, on May 17, 2016, yet another Murdock attorney filed a separate motor vehicle accident lawsuit against Conley. Both actions were later dismissed by Murdock-friendly judges in the 14th Judicial Circuit. Now we're also going to read this other quick little snippet here, and this is just one of those articles that's basically an article about the article from another news source, but they did cite something from the Daily Mail show, and so just refer to the bottom here, the last line. Conley's criminal history ranges from DUIs and domestic violence to hunting without a license and unlawfully killing an antlerless deer, records obtained by Daily Mail show. And the only reason I want to put that up there is the DUI part of it, because I do find this interesting in conjunction with the other charges that seem to be brought up and these other situations he was in. What I want to do now is talk about one more article, and this is in relation to an interview with Mark. This was his, meaning Stephen's alleged boyfriend, and just listen to some of the information or read through it. Again, pause to read, or you can listen to me read through it, and then we'll talk about some final thoughts. Now again, these were in relation to those videos I just spoke of earlier, so you can actually go through and listen to the audio video clips of these, but I just figured this is the quickest way to get to it. So by far the most seismic of the interview files we are dropping today, though, is South Carolina Highway Patrol's interview with Mark Bighart, who described himself to investigators as Smith's boyfriend. It says it was conducted on July 14th, 2015, less than a week after the murder, and it contains perhaps the most vivid description of Smith's final moments alive. According to Bighart, he spoke with Smith on the night of his murder and exchanged text messages with him as late as 3:37 a.m., less than half an hour before his body was found. The last call I heard, I asked him on one of my calls, "Hey, are you walking?" because he already told me he was out of gas on one of the calls before, Bighart said. And I said, "Are you walking?" because I hear cars going by, and his answer to me was no, and then the call dropped. Bighart said that Smith was supposed to see him that evening, but from what I'm learning, he was headed home. Smith never called Bighart back and never responded to another text message. Bighart told investigators Smith sounded like he was drunk. He sounded like he was on something. Later, he added Smith said he felt like he was being followed. To be honest with you, the next day I was upset with him because later on that day, I had a deep gut feeling something had happened for the simple reason the phone wouldn't even take. It would just go right to voicemail, Bighart told investigators. Now let's move on to another excerpt. Bighart eventually told investigators that on the night he was murdered, Smith had mentioned a couple of guys in a pickup truck, two rednecks who allegedly harassed him at Snyder's Crossroads on Highway 63 between Walterboro and Varnell, South Carolina. According to Bighart, Smith told him they were in a big truck with mud tires. The last time we talked that night before the phone went down, and I said to him, "Are you walking or not?" And I know at one point I heard big mud tires, Bighart said. They're like coming towards him or going past him. They sounded loud, and they were getting louder, and that, I believe, was the last time I talked to him. Okay, so that was a major, because again, with the gas thing where it was like, I'm legit out of gas, that part right there, I'm like, okay, because I personally was like, I thought that was a setup. A lot of people mentioned this in the comment section, and I agreed, one of the videos I did before, of why was his gas cap off the thing? Like, you know you're out of gas, right? If you don't have the gas to put in it, why would you leave it like that? Left the wallet in the car, this, that, and the other. Now again, I don't know the validity of this gentleman's story, if he really was this, the boyfriend of Stephen and any of that, right? So you have to do your own investigation and come up with your own opinion in that. But if we look at the options here of going down the road of, could this be the Murdocks doing something, or could this be this or something completely different? I mean, wow, he's alleging that he talked to Stephen moments before probably his life was taken. He heard the tires, he heard the truck. Stephen confirms, I'm out of gas, but he's lying about walking. He feels like maybe Stephen was drunk or doing something or whatever, Wow. So this is continuing to unfold. Again, I go two ways with it. I mean, I'm not going to lie, y'all. There's a part of me that, because Randy is involved in it, makes me say, and I'm not trying to be the little conspiracy person. Again, I have no proof of that. These are my opinions. But because what we saw in the other things where he always popped up to kind of like be a fixer-upper, and the fact that he was like, well, you need to call this person and do that, and then all these appointed judges were like, okay, well, this charges didn't go through and all that. But again, I don't know the particulars of those cases against these gentlemen. Now, like I said earlier, the story that the stepfather was told sounded very realistic, but again, I wasn't there. I don't know these people, so I don't know any more than anyone else does. So like I say, always do your own research, come up to your own conclusions, but I want to hear what your opinion is. If you are following this, or if this is news to you as of now, you've been following it, but you haven't been, scoping it out on your own, is what I'm getting at. Let me know what you think. Do you think this could be a viable, possibility of this is what really went down, or do we still have our skeptical glasses on? I want to know in the comment section. Drop hearts in the comment section for Stephen and all the victims of these cases. regardless of what we find out, it was no way for this young man to leave this earth, right? At the end of the day, his life was taken from him before it was his time. I mean, and someone did this to him, regardless of what. Someone knows what happened, and there is some accountability that needs to happen. So my heart goes out to him, his mother, his sister, everyone who loved him, friends, family, and obviously to him, so that his truth can be told. And if you're still watching, like I said, drop some hearts down below, and until we gather around the little soundproof and stuff back there, the candles in this computer, I'll see you soon.